Welcome, Brooke, to the Boardroom Beauty podcast.
So excited to be here. I love what you're building, and it's fun to be on this side of the couch, like as a guest today.
I know. I think it's hilarious. Like, this feels so full circle to me. I remember discovering Naked Beauty podcast during the pandemic.
Okay, I feel like my pandemic listeners, we were locked inside.
We were locked in together. Okay?
Yes. But I was doing my episode like every Monday, every single week. I didn't miss an episode.
Yeah.
And I feel like people that discovered the show during the pandemic, like the bond is there.
The bond is truly there. And also for me, I was in my process of moving to New York for my new job. And
where were you moving from?
Well, I was in lockdown in Charlotte with my family.
Okay.
And so you definitely gave me a bit of an escape. But, in the process of moving to Charlotte for my job, and I was new to the New York beauty scene. So it was also very informative, and I was in a way doing a homework.
Yeah.
And when listening to Naked Beauty. But I can honestly speak for myself and feel like I'm speaking for the entire Naked Beauty community when I say that it's just been the most inspiring thing to watch you blaze your own trail in the industry. And it's been just a joy to watch you build out loud. And so thank you for all that you do.
Oh my gosh, thank you. And I appreciate hearing that because I've always wanted to share the journey, not just share the milestones and everything, but share with people transparently about what this whole path has been like.
Yeah, the transparency is definitely there. And I mean, truly, I feel like you started back in 2016 when these really raw, organic conversations in beauty just were not happening.
Yeah. Very hard to find.
Very hard to find. And watching the way that you've evolved this has been such a joy. But you are always on the opposite end of the mic. And so I'm just excited for us to dive into your approach to your career, because something that you mentioned earlier is that you have this career in beauty and you're a thought leadership in the industry and an expert. And you've been able to achieve this without ever working for a L'Oreal or an Estee Lauder.
Never. Yes.
Yeah. So it's just we've got to uncover your secret sauce here, because there's so much to learn from you.
Well, I'm really excited to talk about my career path because I do feel like it's been unconventional.
Yeah.
And I really came into the beauty space as a beauty consumer and as a fan.
Yes.
And someone who was hungry for a type of beauty content that didn't exist. So I've always known beauty is a really deep subject matter. I couldn't find deep conversations about beauty.
Yeah.
So I created a show to have those deep conversations about beauty. And I also think a big kind of lesson in my career is persistence and consistency. You have to keep going and going and going and going, even when it's hard, even when no one's listening.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point now when, I get approached by Women's Wear Daily to give a quote for something, and they say, they have me as a beauty thought leader.
Yeah.
It's wow, it's kind of this out of body experience. Oh, they're tapping me to give my perspective on this.
Yeah.
But I've also had to step into that and realize I am truly when I think about being a beauty expert, because of my show and the fact that I talk to so many founders, I talk to formulators of products, I talk to marketers, I talk to just everyday consumers, I talk to trendsetters, I talk to makeup artists. I'm able to hear from so many different perspectives on the world of beauty in this such a interesting, deep 360 way.
It's your niche. It's
my niche and it's my passion, but it's also I hear about beauty from so many different perspectives week after week after week. So over years, that really accumulates into a deep knowledge.
It does. It does. And, again, you have created this swim lane for yourself that can't be replicated. It's you. It's only you. And before we really get into all the questions I have, I feel we need to take a moment, just a moment to recap what feels like one of your biggest interviews to date with Alicia Keys.
Oh, yes. Miss Alicia
Keys.
Feel?
How do you feel after that? I can personally say that after listening to this, it was like a therapy. It was like a therapy session in a way. I felt so good. I felt so uplifted.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
She's so grounded, and I'm happy that you felt uplifted after listening, because that's how I felt after having the conversation. I was I just feel energized, and I also just feel very motivated to prioritize my own self-care.
Yeah.
And I'm so guilty of being like, I'm so busy. I've got so much going on. And I'm like, this woman did the Super Bowl. She had an art show open.
She's at the Brooklyn Museum.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
She literally had a show just open on Broadway, a full musical open on, like, she does so much more than I do, but she's able to stay so grounded and so present. And her energy, I mean, she actually reminded me a little bit of when I spoke with Pharrell on the podcast and when I spoke with Janelle Monáe. All three of them are musicians, but they all have this really grounded, present energy. And I think I'm a relaxed person.
You are. You're very you're incredibly chill, I have to say.
Thank you. I don't always feel relaxed internally.
Yeah.
I don't
but it
always
shows.
feel.
You exude like serenity.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for saying that. But I think I could get even better.
Yeah.
And I think that listening to her talk about how she just prioritizes her meditation and that was so just helpful for me to hear. And she is one of my favorite musicians, but she's also like a beauty icon in so many ways. When she first started doing that kind of no makeup trend in like 2016, remember that was that whole thing where they were like,
I know. It was so controversial.
So controversial. And now it's kind of like, that's why I brought up Pamela Anderson to her because I'm like, so now you're seeing all of these other celebrities kind of follow suit. Like, how does it feel for you to see that?
Yeah. I know. I love that question you asked her. And I mean, I just loved how the conversation was centered around like beauty from the inside out. I think you also did an excellent job of just like, showing the listeners what the true ethos of the brand is because we all know that she has this brand, but like we didn't understand that it truly is meant to be this like ritualistic experience that like creates this experience out of mundane everyday washing your face, putting on a lotion, like it's something that is again like it's affirmative, it's this thing that can like it's inner beauty that you're working on. You know?
I appreciate you saying that. I think celebrity skincare brands, celebrity beauty brands, I think people have automatically a wall up. It's like,
totally.
And I understand it, right? I think the beauty community is a very tight-knit community. People have fought so hard to have their products made. So when a celebrity comes in and says, oh, I'm launching a beauty line, people are like, okay, yeah, it's just a cash grab.
Yeah.
So I think that's also a challenge to me and to the editorial team and the behind-the-scenes team on Naked Beauty to say, okay, we've got this mega celebrity, Grammy Award winner, like we all know her. Keys Soul Care is wonderful product. Have you tried the product?
I've tried the sunscreen.
So good.
Yeah, the sunscreen.
I love the sunscreen.
The sunscreen is definitely, and I'm always like rotating out sunscreens. I don't know why, but just the fact that like it doesn't leave the white cast, is doing what it needs to do. And you mentioned like it's enjoyable to put on because of like the scent, right?
Yes, the Protect Your Light sunscreen. Yeah. So that's part of the work of the show. How do you get to what makes a specific product unique? Because there have been many people that have pitched to be on the podcast and it's just been like, we're going to pass. It's not an interesting story. It's not. And there have been celebrities that have pitched to be on the podcast that we've passed on, I could feel the intention in Keys Soul Care.
So much intention.
And I didn't want to make the whole conversation just about the skincare line, but when she speaks to why she created it and the intention behind the product, it really comes alive.
It really does. And even, she was so vulnerable with you. Like you really created a space that she clearly felt safe. But even just talking about like her struggles in her beauty experience and like, bringing herself to confidence in her skin and like the role that her brand has played in that, like I was sold. I was like, I'm already sold, but like, now I'm like, I need more. Give me more.
Yeah. Thank you.
I want to start with a question that you often ask your guests because you're on the opposite end of the mic today.
I know. It's like so different.
We're interviewing you, but what are your earliest beauty memories and did you feel beautiful growing up?
So my earliest beauty memories, when I think about what kind of shaped my like world, well, there are two things. One, looking back, it's kind of strange. The Victoria's Secret catalog.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I would like take out pictures of Tyra Banks.
Yes.
And Naomi Campbell would be in it sometimes, but I remember lots of Tyra Banks pictures. I would like take out the pictures of all, like, this is such a throwback moment.
Yeah.
And I would like kind of like paste them like onto my radiator. I can remember like my room. And I would have, and now like looking back, I'm like, it's weird that I had all these women in lingerie, like pictures in my room. But that was like beauty.
That was the standard.
Yes.
Like, I remember getting the magazines, and this was, at some point I was like, being marketed towards pink, but before that there was just like Victoria's Secret magazines and like me, like little 11-year-old me was like looking at these women like, this is what I need to look like.
Literally.
Crazy.
Yes, being like, I need this like push-up bra. So
Yeah.
that, and then also watching 106 in Park.
Oh,
Watching
yeah.
106 in Park.
Totally.
I would come home every single day after school and wait for the countdown to begin. It was
Yeah.
AJ and Free at the time.
Yes.
And I would sit there. I would have my little after-school snack, mesmerized.
After-school snack, yes.
Yes. What was your go-to after-school snack?
Cheez-Its or cereal.
Cereal.
So unhealthy.
No, I know. Everything we were eating back then was
so
like
bad.
garbage. I'm
I
like,
know.
why did we have like all the sugary stuff?
I know.
So it was like a bowl of cereal.
Yeah.
And then I would wait for the countdown to come on, and it was like the Ashanti music video. It was like TLC. It was Alicia Keys in
Yes.
Fallen. It was 3LW, Destiny's Child.
Yeah.
I watched TRL too, but I think from a very young age, you start to relate to people that look like you. And all of the beautiful Black and brown women were on BET. That was just where they were. So I'd watch TRL, you know, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, all of that. But when 106 in Park came on, I'm like, this is, yes, music, but like for me, it was also beauty.
It was beauty, yes.
Because the visuals back then, the art of the music video, that was a very big thing.
Yes.
And I can also remember feeling excited when I would see like a beautiful dark skinned model. Like there was this model in the Frontin' video, Pharrell's Frontin' video, that was just like stunning. And some of it was like, of course, looking back, like misogynistic, right?
Yes.
Like the girls just like shaking it in the bikinis. But I would look at the hairstyles and the makeup and so 106 in Park really did a lot to like cement my like early ideas of what it meant to be beautiful.
I mean, do you remember like America's Next Top Model? Did you ever watch that?
Oh my gosh, of course.
Well,
Not
yeah.
only did I watch it, I was with Yaya DaCosta like over the weekend, just like
You're
hanging
lying.
out. First of all, she's still like stunningly gorgeous.
Of course.
She was on
Of course.
cycle 3, the
Yeah.
same cycle that Eva won.
Yes.
I was obsessed with America's Next Top Model.
Obsessed.
I didn't see any of the problematic stuff that I now see.
I mean, because back then that was just normal. It's just what
Right.
we accepted, as terrible as it is. I totally looked at that and was like, I mean,
How old
what
are
was-
you?
I'm 28. I turned 29 in 2 weeks.
28. Okay, so you were like really, really, really young.
But the cycle kept going and going and
I know,
going.
it
But
went on
like I was
forever.
watching America's Next Top Model with my mom, and my mom would be like, "Oh, you could easily be on there." She'd be like gassing me up, like
Yes.
you could easily be one of
That
those
is
girls.
that is what moms are for.
That's what
That is
they
moms
do.
are for.
Yeah.
Yeah, top model. I mean, looking back again, so much of the beauty culture wasn't the most positive.
It really
right?
wasn't. And you find like little pockets of positivity, you know.
Yes.
But I
yes.
mean, speaking of moms, like you have a very powerful mother.
Yes, I
Jerry
do.
DeVard. Like, what role did she play in kind of like your early beauty experiences, and then like later on in life, like was she an inspiration for you in your career?
Yeah. So I'd say like powerful mother and powerful grandmother. My grandmother, Dr. Jean DeVard Kemp,
Oh wow.
who was a single mom raising my mom, and decided while raising my mom and my uncle to go back to school to get her master's, to get her PhD,
Wow.
doing it all on her own. She's just incredible and also so fabulous. Everything I've learned about like fashion and style and shopping, that has all come from like my grandmother and from my mom.
Yeah.
My mom worked at Revlon. She was like a senior vice president at Revlon growing up.
Wow.
So I would remember she would come home with these little beauty samples, like different nail polishes I could try and different
Yes.
eyeshadow palettes
and Revlon in those days was like
everything.
on top. Okay.
Everything. Yes. Yes. So I guess also in an early way, seeing that my mom worked in beauty in that way, even though she was on the marketing side, I kind of understood that could be a career,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
subconsciously.
Yeah.
And she would also talk to both my brother and I about like, okay, this is the tagline. This is how we're positioning it. Like, this is an early cut of the commercial.
That's so brilliant. Like, I love that
Yes.
she did that with you all. She brought you into her professional world.
Yes, because I also can remember my mom working a lot when I
Yeah.
was growing up. And it's funny because as a mom now, I have guilt sometimes about working, or if I have to travel for work and I have to be away from my son.
Yeah.
But I also remember when I was young, sometimes my mom couldn't come to things, but I knew what she was doing. I'd know she was on a commercial shoot.
Yeah.
So I'd see all the other like girls and their moms were there, and they'd be like, "Oh, where's your mom?" I'm like, "She's on a commercial shoot.
On a commercial shoot.
Like,
right.
she's working. Like she's
handling business. She's
handling,
standing on business is what she's doing.
She's standing on business. And I actually am so grateful that she always explained to both my brother and I the work that she was doing and why it was important to her. So we were like all rooting for her and supportive. We didn't see it as like it taking away. And then when she was there and always very present. But that's a good reminder to me as a mom to always explain. I always explain to my son, even now, even when I do my unboxings, I'm like, so all of these brands are sending mommy things so I can talk about it on my podcast or give my point of view. And do we like this color?
Mommy's going to be a little like content creator expert.
Oh gosh, maybe. We'll see.
That's so cool though. I mean, you and I, well, first of all, just like having that early awareness of like what it looks like to like have a career that you find meaning in. Like you probably, I'm sure, subconsciously approach your career and like knowing that, you know, you wanted to find your real passion. And something that's really funny is that both you and I, so my mom also went to Spelman.
Yeah.
But I think she was, so my mom, she told me a hilarious story. This is going to be a blast from the past for you.
Okay, tell me.
She told me that your mom was, I think she was a senior when my mom was like a rising freshman.
Oh, wow.
And my mom had gone to homecoming because her boyfriend at the time, who probably would have ended up being my dad, but that's another story. Her boyfriend at the time was at Morehouse and she had gone to homecoming with him. And your mom was homecoming queen with Spike Lee.
Yes, Miss Maroon and White, which is like a very big deal.
A very big deal, right? And so I'm sure you had like the pressure to go to Spelman, as I also had the pressure to go to Spelman.
I had a framed picture in my bedroom growing up that said, "Let her first steps be towards Spelman."
Yes.
What's it called? Chapel Hall?
Chapel Hall,
There's like a little girl in like a white dress, like tottering towards you. Like it was like you were going to Spelman.
Yeah. No, I used to like be put in like future Spelmanite t-shirts, but didn't work out. I mean, I was a college athlete and they'd lost all their like sports and like, you know, whatever.
Oh, wow.
But you ended up going to Stanford.
Yes.
Can you tell me about what that experience was like?
Yes. Well, just very quick note on Spike Lee directing the homecoming video. I mean, first of all, like, is that not the most iconic thing you've ever heard?
So iconic.
I know. I kind of wish that they had like TikTok and like reels back then.
Right.
Because I just like know that my mom was very much like an it girl.
Oh, she was an it girl.
Like she was very much that girl.
My mom told me like we just knew that Jerry DeVard was going to do big things.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I have to tell her that. That's amazing. So I went to Stanford, but one of the biggest like caveats and like things that like really sold Stanford was they have a program that's gone on for like 50 plus years now where you can do an exchange program with Spelman or Morehouse. And so every single year they send a few students to Spelman and Morehouse, and then Spelman and Morehouse send students to Stanford.
The exchange, yeah.
It's been around since like, I don't know, the 60s or 70s. It's been around for forever.
Yeah.
So as soon as I heard that, I was like, okay, I'm going to do like the best of everything.
You get both.
We get both. And my Spelman experience, let me just tell you, I've never had so much fun in my life.
Yeah.
I've never been surrounded by, because the school I went to an all-girls private school on the Upper East Side. Overwhelmingly white, like overwhelmingly white. I think I was the first, when I joined in 5th grade, I was the first Black girl in the entire grade.
Wow.
Yes. So it was very, I mean, maybe there were a few Asian, maybe 2 Asian girls, very white.
Yeah.
So to be in this environment surrounded by Blackness, like one, it just felt so good.
Yeah.
And I also just felt like I had so much more visibility of the diaspora, like just all different types of Black people.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, people from other countries, people Southern, like just a whole different experience. And I just had the best time. I think we went out and partied like every single night.
Oh my gosh.
Every day of the week. Yes, it was very fun. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, of course, my mom went, and what's hilarious is that like most of my friends in New York went to Spelman.
Really?
So I feel like in a way, like I'm by proximity, I kind of have, you know, in proxy to the experience. But I mean, bringing us up to like your work life, you know, like your entrepreneurship now centers in beauty, but you have spanned so many different industries, media, fashion, tech.
Yes.
And going from Ralph Lauren to Viacom and Instagram. Can you tell us about what your earlier career looked like and what some of the lessons that you gained from that and took on into your later career were?
so many lessons.
I'm
I have
sure.
spanned a ton of industries, and I
Yeah.
actually love that. I also think that's really important to not just stay one, like never stay at an entire company your whole career,
No
but
way.
also like switch industries.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you switch industries, you aren't able to, like, I'll give you a perfect example. When I went from Ralph Lauren to Viacom, I had to go from senior manager back to manager. And it was like,
The titles is like
the
a whole thing.
titles, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if I had stayed at Ralph Lauren, I would have been going from senior manager to director.
Right.
But I couldn't go to a new industry.
Yeah.
And at Ralph Lauren, my title was I was a social media manager. So I did social media, digital marketing, but I was very like in the realm of social, which I had felt
Right.
like I really perfected. I'd really like reached the pinnacle of like, okay, I really understand in and out how to use these platforms to generate
Yeah.
revenue, to tell a brand story.
Mhm.
But then when I went to Viacom, I wanted broader experience. I wanted to work in marketing and strategy, not just social media.
Mhm.
Some people have incredible, fabulous careers only in social media, right? Like you can be a senior director of social media and make
You can
a
do so
ton
much.
of money.
Yeah.
You can make a ton of money. But I was like, I don't want to just do social. I want
Yeah.
to marketing and strategy broadly.
Yeah.
So I had to like humble myself and take a manager position. But I do think that working across industries gives you so much insight. It gives you just like a much fuller picture.
Totally.
And I think you also have to know when to leave and not be afraid to know when to leave.
Yeah.
I loved working at Ralph Lauren, but I reached a point where I felt like I had learned everything I could learn. And I also wasn't getting as much excitement and joy as I was getting in the beginning. I think it's really important if you're doing like the most fun thing that can happen in your job and you're not excited about it, then that's like a little signal
It's time to go.
that it's time to go. It
Yeah.
would be like if I had like, done the Alicia Keys interview and I was like, I feel nothing,
Yeah.
It'd be like, okay, you may need to like wrap this podcast
Yeah.
up because it's not giving you joy anymore. But I
Yeah.
remember it was like my 5th or 6th fashion week, and we would always, of course, for the fashion show on Instagram, and you're backstage with all of the models, you're getting all of the clips, and it's like this big deal, right? It's like
Yeah.
New York Fashion Week. And I remember my last one, I was just like, I'm tired. Like, I don't care about this.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, okay, it's time to start looking for a new challenge.
Yeah. Definitely like you've got to feel that challenge. So you went from Ralph Lauren to Viacom to Instagram.
Yes.
And so where were you working when the idea of Naked Beauty came about?
Yeah. So I was working at Viacom.
Okay.
And this was 2016. Yes. And this was really the beginning of, for me, the podcast renaissance. Now, I think podcasts really, really took off during the pandemic.
Totally.
But I don't know if you remember Serial. Do you remember that podcast?
Oh, yes.
With
Of course. That was
Adnan.
really the first podcast I ever listened to.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So there was
That was the
Serial. That
first
was like 2015, maybe.
Yeah.
The Read came out. I think The Read came out in maybe 2014.
Yeah.
Which I still listen to every week. I
Yeah.
love Crystal and Kid Fury. When I went to the Sacred launch party, like obviously Beyonce was there and it's Beyonce, but for me, meeting Kid Fury and Crystal, I was like,
You're like, whoa.
I love it. Because I
That's
feel
so
like
funny.
having a close relationship with a podcaster is almost like deeper than a celebrity. Because it's like, I
Oh,
listen
yeah.
to you all.
For sure. You're
every
in my ear
week.
every day, every
Right.
week.
Yes.
Like, you and I,
We're friends.
We're
like
friends.
you don't know who I am, but we are friends.
We have a relationship.
Yeah. So I was just like listening to every podcast I could find. I would listen to Joe Rogan. I mean, now like LOL, like
LOL.
but there was nothing else.
Right.
There was nothing else. I would listen to like Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
I would listen to the Mark Maron podcast.
Yeah.
I still love the Mark Maron podcast, but I was just so hungry for conversation. And this was also the time that Into the Gloss was really popular, where they would do these
Yes.
kind of long form beauty interviews.
Yes.
And then it just sort of clicked like, I love podcasts as like a listener. I love beauty. I want this like deeper beauty conversation. I think I can just like get a microphone and figure this out and just like launch my own podcast.
Oh my gosh. And so you went for it. I listened to your first interview back in
Oh my
2016.
gosh. Something I
and
would never do. How was it? Was it
No,
like a
it was
mess?
it was great. You were so vulnerable and you really expressed how like, you could continue to like perfect this and ruminate over like the details and strategize and like, but you chose to build out loud. Like you chose to bring this and knowing that like it wasn't going to be perfect, but there's a need for this. We need to have more, unpolished, uncurated conversations, and you went for it.
Yeah.
I mean, do you still today struggle with like wanting to perfect something before it's released?
I feel very grateful that this has not been something I've struggled with.
Yeah.
I feel very grateful that I'm not self-conscious. which is, and I did a reel about this
I
telling
was gonna say,
people,
I remember, yes, this is like
yes,
giving me like I'm reminded of
yes,
this reel that like I think you posted in like the beginning of the year, and I was like, yes, this is an energy that we need for the new year.
yes, because I think that self-consciousness is often tied to this like perception that thousands of people are judging you or people are looking at you under a microscope.
Yeah,
And I think I've just been so hyper aware of the fact that like people are so in their own heads.
we
Like
really
no one
are.
is thinking
We're
about
so
you.
obsessed with ourselves. Like,
Yes.
yes, we look to others for entertainment, but like, really, nobody's looking at that like, minute detail that you think they're judging you for.
They really, really aren't. They really aren't. So I don't know. I've always had this kind of like perspective that no one is like there to be hypercritical of other people,
Yeah.
you know? And I think that I've always realized that like done is better than perfect. And just what do they say in tech? Like the minimum viable product, like just get the minimum viable, get good enough out there.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's exactly what they say in tech. Like,
Yes.
release it
And what, you know, we both have tech experience.
yeah.
The other thing that they do is market testing. They test,
Mhm.
they iterate,
Yep.
they see how the product performs over time. They're always updating products, right?
Always, always.
And so if you never get the product out there to iterate and test and develop it, it's never going to get as good as it needs to be for you to be proud of it. And you're not going to be proud of your work at the very beginning. You have to have that very uncomfortable time period
You do.
between it's available for public consumption,
Yeah.
and then you iterate and you develop and you improve it until it's like, okay, this is something I'm really proud of.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. No, that I just felt like that resonated like so deeply with me, and like being really 1 year into this, and like and then also just like any and every other entrepreneur. So okay, you're at Viacom, you're building Naked Beauty.
Yes.
What did it actually look like to balance Naked Beauty with a full-time corporate
Yes.
career?
I think part one was full transparency with my
Mhm.
employer. Is your employer aware of your podcast?
Some are. Some people are.
Is
I
your
don't.
man-
My
you know what I should say, your
manager. My
manager.
manager does know that I have a podcast,
Yes.
but I don't think he knows that I take it seriously. I think he knows that I do it, and
Yeah.
he's just like he doesn't really ask too many questions, and I kind of like it that way. I would prefer.
But great. As long
Yeah.
as they're aware, I
Yeah.
think that that's really important. Like I
Yeah.
was always very, even when I accepted my position at Instagram, before I signed all of the paperwork, I
Yeah.
was like, I have this podcast. I intend to monetize this I wasn't making money from it yet.
Yeah.
Will I be able to accept outside sponsors? I mean, I asked this after they offered me the role. I was like, I need paperwork. I need to
Yeah.
understand.
Put that in writing.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's when they explained to me, this is the conflicts committee and this is how it's going to work. And your manager is okay with it. But so I think one, it's about being transparent with your manager that you're
Yes.
going to do something outside of work.
Yeah.
And then beyond letting them know that it's happening, they can never, ever, ever, ever feel that you are slacking on your job because you have something going on outside of work. Ever.
I don't know. Like I feel like I have so many different like conflicting feelings about that, because I don't know, in tech I feel like they're always supportive of like your side hustle. Like tech is so entrepreneurial. They're like,
Yes.
yeah, go and start this, go. But like I feel like in certain industries it's almost like, no, this job is your life. And
It can, and that's why, I mean, I didn't have a child. Every
Yeah.
single weekend,
Yeah.
like, first of all, every evening, I used to edit every show myself, do all of the questions. I mean, I had no help. I'm like uploading the episode artwork myself,
Yep.
everything, A to Z myself, right?
Yeah.
I worked on it every single day after school, after work, every single day. And every Saturday and Sunday, I also spent working on. So it was like
Yeah.
very clear that I'd never spent work hours. I never spent company time
Okay.
working on it.
Right. Right.
And that's very important. Like,
yeah.
like do not ever, if you have a company that's gracious enough to let you explore a side hustle,
Yeah.
never use company time or resources.
Take time off. Like do what you need to do.
Do what you need to do. You can use your vacation
Yeah.
days. My most recent episode, I can't, it's been under a year since I've like worked for myself. When I interviewed John Legend, I like had all these meetings filling up my calendar. I like took a PTO day just to do
Sometimes you have
the
to.
interview.
Yeah.
You know.
You have to.
So yeah, I think it was just like being transparent and then just working very late every single night and on the weekends.
That persistence.
You've got to do it. You've got to do it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've experienced so much alongside you in building Naked Beauty, including your journey to motherhood. And so like, you know, having Mavi, like how did that change sort of your like perspective on your career and what you wanted to build with Naked Beauty?
Mm. I think that having a child really puts things into focus for you in terms of one, how do you really want to spend your time?
Mhm.
Like, because every time not spent with your child, you're kind of like, do I need to be here?
Yeah.
Do I need to do this?
Right.
So if you're like at a, 3-day offsite for something you don't really care about, you're like, wow, like why am I here?
Yeah.
Um, so I think that was kind of one of the first clues that, and I was on maternity. I mean, I had such a generous maternity leave program
Mhm.
at Meta, but when I came back to work, I remember not feeling as excited or as
Mm.
invested
Mm.
in the work as I was before I had a child,
Yeah.
because it just felt like, so a meeting would go over and I was just like, oh, I just want to wrap this up.
Right.
Um, so I think it taught me a lot about really making sure that the hours you spend doing the work are towards something you really believe in and you really feel
Mm.
proud of and you're really excited to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I had a manager. She was my first manager at Google, and she had two young boys. And you actually remind me a
Oh,
lot of
really?
Rachel. Like, and she's someone I admire so much. Like, she's still my mentor
What's her
to
last
this
name?
Rachel Dobby.
Okay, I know another
Uh,
Rachel from Google, but
yeah.
okay.
Well, I
Shout
mean,
out to Rachel Dobby. She sounds
yeah,
like a great
I
manager.
mean, honestly, like I probably still wouldn't be, I would not be where I am today if it weren't for Rachel. But
Mm.
I mean, she expressed something very similar in like balancing motherhood with, I mean, she has been such a boss at Google. Like your time is not only so precious for you, but for your family. And like you just want real substance out of what
Yes.
you're doing.
Yes, you've got no time to waste. But
Yeah.
it's so beautiful to hear you talk about how Rachel poured into you and
Yeah.
impacted you, because I had a boss like that at Instagram,
Yeah.
Natalie Chan, who
Yeah.
was also a mom and was very transparent about that journey.
Hmm.
But having someone who sees you and understands your
Oh
talent
my gosh.
and can help level set with you and and
Yes.
and tell you the thing, like, it's not meant for everyone to be a manager.
It's really
It's really
not.
not. And to have a good manager, it's almost better than working at a great company,
Oh, for sure.
you know?
I would completely agree. I've seen people go to companies that like maybe wasn't their first choice, but they're going to work for someone,
Yes.
and that person, like I can speak transparently. I look at like Chanel Tyler and my friend
Mhm.
Danielle Milton, who now is at Howell working under Chanel because Chanel was just that impactful as a manager. So
Yes.
she was willing to like leave YouTube and like follow Chanel and
That's
do
amazing.
cool things with her. But no, it's true. I mean, having an incredible manager early on in your career who like sees your worth. I mean, I'm so lucky to have had that. But
Yeah. It's transformative.
it is transformative. But last year you made a major pivot.
Yes.
You went
Yes.
from
Goodbye,
being
corporate world.
goodbye corporate world. You were a corporate girly for how long?
Gosh, 11, 12 years.
Wow.
I mean, since I graduated, like
Yeah.
I graduated and like, sorry, before I even graduated, I did all of my internships. I interned at Ogilvy, the advertising
Oh my
agency.
gosh,
Like
yes.
I was like, and I also grew up with my mom being a
Right.
CMO,
Yeah.
like
Oh my gosh.
that was like the pinnacle of like corporate marketing. So I was just
Right.
like, I'll follow suit. Like I'll just be
Right.
like a corporate person my whole career.
Yeah. You went from being a corporate girl. You always had this very robust side hustle,
Mhm.
very impressive side hustle with Naked Beauty. But it seems like you have just navigated this transformation so gracefully. And so like I'd love to dig into, if you have a particular philosophy or a
Mhm.
mindset in, you know, your process in making these career pivots.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you have a feeling that you can do it on your own
Hmm.
and you feel that like I'm just going to bet on myself. I don't want to work for anyone else. I only want to work for myself. If you
Hmm.
feel that in your spirit
Hmm.
and you've had corporate work experience, because you can't be successful in corporate without working very hard and having a strong work ethic. Like
Yeah.
if you've been able to enter a company, rise up the ranks, you have the work ethic already. So you don't have to question your work ethic.
Right.
But when you combine work ethic with passion,
Mm.
the results are, it's limitless.
Yeah.
It becomes limitless. And I think when you work in corporate, it's interesting. You can crush all of your goals. You can deliver 150%. You can bring your A game every single day.
Yeah.
but there is only so much more you can be rewarded. Like
Right.
there is a ceiling.
There is always a ceiling.
Whereas when you work for yourself, and this is the good and the bad of working for yourself, when you
Mhm.
work for yourself, there's no ceiling.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just as much energy as you have, like you can really reap the benefits of your hard work in a way that you can't when you work
Yeah.
for someone else. So I think if you have like that inkling, like I can do this
Yeah.
and this is something I want to do, then anyone that has that feeling, they should do it.
Yeah.
They should do it.
And so I guess like you spent 11 or 12 years in corporate America. What were the skills that you developed while you were there that made you feel like really confident knowing that you could do this naked beauty full time?
Great question. Diplomacy. Diplomacy.
I love that.
Learning how to multitask across various projects and various sets of people. I mean, even now I think about my team at Naked Beauty. We've got video editing happening. We've got pre-production and research. I have products that are being developed. I'm
Yeah.
consulting with brands as well.
Yeah.
There are so many things happening at once and I have to context shift all the time.
Yeah.
But you in your role at Google have to context shift all the time. Your
Yeah.
11 a.m. meeting is an entirely different project than your 2 p.m. meeting, right? So you're just constantly switching between these different like modes of thinking. And then having really clear communication skills is
Yeah.
something that serves you well in any company and in any entrepreneurial endeavor, being able to clearly communicate what you want, what you need from people.
What were some things that your community did not see in this transition of going from full-time corporate and now in entrepreneurship?
So I think I've tried to share a lot. I think one of the things they haven't seen are all of the countless conversations I've had with my husband,
Yeah.
who is an entrepreneur and has been an entrepreneur for a lot longer than I have. He started his career at Coca-Cola. He was like the head of music and entertainment for Coca-Cola, like a big corporate job. He left to start his own agency.
Oh, wow.
Deviant Ventures. Yes. So he and I have so many conversations about, okay, what does this mean? How's it all going to work?
Yeah.
Like, and he's like been such an amazing supporter. And I think that that's a really important thing also for people listening. It is so important to be with someone that supports you. And he was just a huge support system. So that's one. I think the other thing is I signed with UTA, United Talent Agency. I did all
Yes.
of the meetings. I talked to WME and
Yeah.
CAA and like, what does this world of talent management look like?
Yeah.
And what does it mean to have an agent and do the whole LA Hollywood thing?
Yeah.
And I have been so grateful for my agents at UTA because they've really helped to make me just kind of focused on what I want to accomplish. But I will also say a lot of people have this goal of like being signed to an agency. Like they want to. I had lunch with a creator and I was like, so what are your goals as a creator? And she was just starting out. She's like, I want to get signed to like a UTA or a CAA. And I
Yeah.
was like, that can't be your goal.
It isn't in there.
Because the first meeting they're going to ask you, you sign the paperwork, the first thing they're going to say is, so what are your goals? And if you say, my goal is to be here in this room with you all, they're going to say, well, we have nothing to do here, you know?
Right.
You have to be really clear on what you want to make happen.
Yeah.
So my very first meeting with them, I had a whole deck, the corporate
Wow.
girly in me, so an 11-page deck. And do you know what they asked me at the end of that meeting? They said, what did you use to make this deck? It like looked so good. I said, I used Canva. I use Canva for everything. And they said, we've been talking to Canva. Let me see if we can get you in front of them for a sponsorship. A week later, they said, we just sold in a Canva partnership.
So they just make things happen, but you have to come with the vision.
Yes, you have to come with the vision. And they understand what I am trying to achieve and how I'm
Yeah.
trying to grow. And they've been great partners.
Oh my gosh, that's so fortunate. So Naked Beauty has been around for 8 years now.
Yes.
Congratulations. I mean, you've experienced so much success. Are there moments in your memory that feel like, or that you felt like at the time you had just made it?
I think when I hear people that really work in the industry that like love the show, like when I went to that sacred Beyonce launch party and I have people that are working on product development and branding being like, we love Naked Beauty, or a reporter from the LA Times being like, I never miss an episode.
Wow.
When I hear people that truly watch everything, listen to everything, read everything, and they're like, we love Naked Beauty, that really means a lot to me because I think
Yeah.
I'm very particular
Mm.
about who I invite into
Yes.
the naked beauty space.
Yes.
There's a quote from Anna Wintour in September issue. She says, it has to mean something to be in Vogue. Like being in Vogue means
Mm.
something. And I
Mhm.
feel that way about naked beauty. Like it has to
100%.
mean something.
Yeah.
So the fact that the content is resonating with people in these really senior positions deep in the industry, like
Yes.
I'm like, okay, I'm really doing something if they're paying attention.
Oh, you are totally doing something. And then that leads me to my question of like, do you ever have these dreams that like you're almost like afraid to say out loud for Naked Beauty? Like what is like the future of Naked Beauty?
So I have the fragrance launch coming up, which I'm not afraid to say I'm very excited
Yes.
about that. But I mean, I've always felt like what Anthony Bourdain has done for food and global travel, I want to do for beauty.
Yeah.
And that's a big, ambitious thing.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to travel around the world and like do spotlights on beauty culture. But I want to make that happen. And I've
Yeah.
been having conversations about how that could happen. So
Mm.
it's like scary to put that out there and to like say out loud. But I
Yeah.
feel like Naked Beauty Global, like a travel show about beauty,
Wow.
that would be major for me.
Oh my gosh, you're the right person to do it.
Oh, thank you for saying
I'm
that.
so excited to see you do that.
you.
Like, can we see? Oh my gosh, I hope you're like already in production because that is something that I'd love to see. And you know, one thing that I've noticed is it feels like you're really deprioritizing conversations around physical beauty and centering more conversations around self-care in beauty practices. I mean, can you tell us about how that has influenced your decision for creating a fragrance line and robes and
Yes.
bringing more like that sensory experience to beauty?
I feel like in terms of product offerings, there's so much on the market, but I'm really encouraged by this idea that people want to invest more in self-care.
Yeah.
And self-care isn't just like a moisturizer.
Right.
Self-care is like putting on that cashmere robe.
Yes.
It's spraying on that fragrance. It's lighting that candle. So I'm really focused now on developing products that help to support self-care.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I totally see it. Brooke, I would love to ask you, like in present day, you told us about some things that inspired you growing up. Like what is fueling your ambition and your creativity to date?
Ooh, I think that the beauty community is like maturing in a way where like everyone I know who loves beauty is hungry for deeper conversations,
Yes.
deeper content. Like I feel like I feel like the girls that love beauty, it's like the smartest women.
The beauty consumer is honestly so smart.
So smart.
So smart.
So like I just want to like keep going so I can like meet the audience at the like sophistication and intelligence level that they're at. Like that
Oh my
is
gosh.
what drives me. Like can I meet people at the level that they're at, because I really do feel like there's this like deep hunger for thoughtful beauty content.
There really is. And I think you're doing such an excellent job of like supporting them and wanting to go deeper and having more meaningful experiences.
Absolutely. And I love what you're doing with the show. And I
Thank you.
you're early on in your career, but you're going to look back and be like, oh my gosh, 10 years ago, I was just like sitting down doing my season 2 opener and look what I'm doing now.
Well, I mean, I can tell you again, this feels very full circle to me. This is like truly a very legendary moment in
Oh.
the Boardroom Beauty podcast. And, you know, I just thank you for being so vulnerable with your community. I thank you for what you've built. And, you know, I'm just excited to see what you do next. You're an alchemist. You make dreams come true.
I'm excited to see what you do next. I love to see beautiful, smart Black women in the beauty space telling stories, just using their intelligence and expertise to like facilitate conversation. We need more of it. And I'm grateful that you're out here doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Brooke, for joining.
Thank you. This was such a pleasure.